What's up YouTube, Webberz05 here coming at you today with Q&A number 50! Yes, we're already at 50 Q&As already, that's just insane, frankly. But as per most of the Q&As, once again, today's questions are brought to you by DarkRotation84 for all your Yu-Gi tubing needs. So, these questions are about my other hated decks, which I didn't put on my original list. Alright then, let's get into it. Question 1. Thoughts on Fluffle's Fright Furs? So, I like the gimmick of how Fluffles and Fright Furs work. I mean, they don't really have a specific gimmick, it's just combining utensils with toys to create, like, demonic toys. But each individual Fright Fur has its own unique thing, which is pretty interesting. I have to say, back in the day when they first started becoming a thing, Fright Fur Sheep was an absolute pain to get rid of, because you kill it once, it comes back with 800 extra attack. And 2800 wasn't exactly easy to get around that back in those days. So yeah, it was a bit of a pain, but overall I think it's still a pretty interesting deck. I don't really know what it's kind of doing now, so I'd like to see that at some point. 2. Thoughts on Magical Muskets? I don't really remember what Magical Muskets do. I think they're like some column-based system. I think they did something about playing traps from the hand, but I don't entirely remember. I feel like I've played against them once, but it was so long ago I really just don't remember the archetype at all. So, don't really have too much to say on something I don't really remember. 3. Thoughts on Hat? So I know about the Hat deck, so I know it's Heraldic, Artifacts, and Trap Tricks, I think. Pretty sure. I never actually played during that format, but I heard it was actually pretty decent. I did do a small bit of research into Hat formats. I discovered that Spellbook was actually a thing back in Hat, so I have been trying to work on an idea for a Hat build in Spellbook, though frankly it's just not as good as current format, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to go through with it, but it's there as an option. 4. Thoughts on Scareclaw? Scareclaw have been very much annoying. I don't really like their gimmick at all. The field spell, putting all my stuff in defense so that I can't attack, unless I've just spam a bunch of links, which I'd need a deck very much specified around doing that, which there aren't very many, which I don't really have many of, so it's a bit of an issue for me to deal with. And then Tryhard itself is just stupid that it gains so many effects from all the defense stuff, where it just like, make itself big, attack multiple times with piercing and just kill. So annoying. Did not like it at all. Still don't like it. But overall, for what it did, but the archetype itself is pretty interesting. It reminds me a bit of Super Heavies, that it is based around stuff in defense, but rather they still use their attack mode. Just try hard to smack over things. So yeah, interesting. But annoying. 5. Thoughts on Trap Tricks? So I've seen Trap Tricks have been substantially stronger ever since they got their structure deck. They've got lots of new cards which seem to add quite a bit of versatility into the build. One of my friends, Jude, he went to an OTS championship very shortly after the release of Trap Tricks, and he went completely undefeated in it because by default nobody knew anything about what anything in the deck did. So clearly it's doing something right. But overall, for what the Trap Tricks mechanic does, and ever since they got Rafflesia, being able to just use trap holes from the deck is pretty insane, and now they've got their own lots of other things that they can do, so yeah, they're overall pretty interesting for a trap deck. 6. Thoughts on Macro? Pretty much any macro deck has caused me a lot of problems because I don't really play decks that don't care about the grave, which is rather annoying. I mean, technically lots of my pendulum builds don't care about the grave, however, macro overrides the pendulum mechanic of going to the extra decks, which is very much of a pain for me. So yeah, I've never really had much fun against a macro deck. Don't like it at all. No. 7. Thoughts on Goatee? I think I recall I had a tournament match against Goatee. They were pretty interesting of how their mechanic works of banishing to do things, but then again lots of decks manage to do things, but still. Adding in a synchro mechanic as well was pretty interesting. Don't really remember too much about it, but I've seen like replays in Master Duel that they do some pretty interesting stuff. Overall, I think they're overall I think they're not bad, but I'd need to like look properly at the build to see what it does. 8. Thoughts on Floowandereeze. So, back in the day when they had the Wind Barrier statue, they were the absolute most annoying deck to have to deal with, because you can't, so many decks just can't play against a barrier statue, particularly the Wind Barrier statue, when Wind's probably one of the most least prominent attributes in the game. I mean, like my main deck of Endymion, I only play 2 wind attribute monsters. One is Servant and the other is Appaloosa, but if I can't get the materials to summon Appaloosa, then it's kind of annoying. So yeah, back in the day they were pretty horrible. I was very happy to hear when Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds got banned, which was great. But the deck's still relatively irritating after that, because now basically instead of doing end on a Barrier Statue, they just set them to the point where they can just control you with either Apex Avian or just bounce whatever you're trying to do with Riser. And then also M-Pen itself is quite annoying to deal with. But over several tournaments of facing against it, I have like the basic idea of what I need to do to stop Floowandereeze, and I know the main thing is stopping their spells. So, if I stop the spells, it's not so bad. I do find it quite annoying though that they get around evenly matched because of their inherent mechanic, which states that they banish face up, which apparently just overrides evenly matched to get them banished face down, which is stupid. And finally, question 9. I was going to ask your thoughts on Runic and Kashtira, but then I remembered you play Runics with Plunder Patrol, and I saw you were playing Kashtira in the last tournament. Technically, at the moment, I actually don't have the Runic anymore. It was quite interesting. It did have some nice synergy with Plunder Patrol, but it was just but I found it was just kind of boring, so got rid of it, which wasn't so bad. And yeah, I was on Kashtira in the last tournament. I found a small budget variant and went for that. What made you want to play Kashtira? So, a couple months back, I got a playset of Fenrir and started testing that out in Endymion just as an additional thing, which was pretty good. Fenrir itself is just a really powerful card and good. Shortly after that, when Unicorn got hit to 2, So when Unicorn got hit to 2, I decided I talked to some guys who were like, so you got like a spare Unicorn now? So I'm like, just picked up a couple of Unicorn, and then I also picked up a berth in a trade with someone, so I'm like, this could work. I thought because of Berth's effect that it lets you normal summon level someone higher without tributing once per turn. I thought, you know what, maybe this could make a decent engine in Endymion, so that's why I picked up the Unicorns and the Berth. Test around with that a bit. And then I also picked up an Arise Heart because I thought, if I'm really trying this, maybe I can commit 3 level 7s to be able to make an Arise Heart. Gave that a try, didn't work out in the build, but I still kept on to the Arise Heart. Shortly after that, when the OTS updated, I got the Kashtira Scareclaw in the OTS. Then after that, I just decided, I thought to myself, I've got quite a bit of the engine now, I might as well just try and finish it off. And so that's basically what I did. I tried to finish off the basics of the engine. I found a budget variant on Neuron, that's it. I found a budget variant on Neuron, which I based my build around. So I was like, this isn't so bad. Like, the budget variant only plays one of Theosis and one planet, which made it a lot easier to build. So I built that up, tweaked it a little bit to my liking, tested it out, really enjoyed it. It fills into my style of control, and it's also just generically very strong, so yeah, that's kind of how I got into playing Kashtira. and frankly, I'm really enjoying it, even if it is a meta deck. But still, I just kind of fancied it. And the other reason I got into playing it was I kind of just fancied a bit of a change. Like, everyone at locals is so used to me playing Endymion, so I'm like very easy to predict. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to have a go at playing Kashtira in a tournament. And when I did, I went undefeated. So I'm really pleased with that. And that's all the questions I have for this week, so thank you once again, DarkRetrition84, for your questions. Very amusing as always. And if anybody else has any questions for me, I do these Q&As every Wednesday, UK time, morning, afternoon, depending on my schedule. And questions for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.